Council, I have a speaker for item C12/18-271, notice of motion for a childcare, and Mr. Chang Lim, who is interest is the Peak Body Australia Childcare Alliance, New South Wales. Mr. Lim, you have 3 minutes to address Council, and again, if you could please stay at the mic in case there's any questions. Thank you, Mr. Lim.
Certainly. Good evening, Mayor Cummings, Deputy Mayor Elmore, councillors, General Manager, and senior staff, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chang Lim. I am the CEO of the Australian Childcare Alliance, New South Wales. Firstly, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of a peak body for 1,600 childcare services across New South Wales, owned and run overwhelmingly by family, small businesses. Some of you would know me as a former councillor in Parramatta. It is my local government experience that I share with you my concerns about the loss of council powers to effectively regulate where and what kind of childcare services there ought to be within your local government area, primarily as a result of the introduction of a particular SEP for the safety of children and the local amenity of your residents. To best illustrate this, I refer to a new childcare centre your IHAP approved at 49 Bombay Street, corner of Nicholas Street, Lidcombe. This new centre will have a maximum capacity of 56 children. Yet IHAP did not take adequate consideration as to how 56 children plus at least 12 staff would quickly and safely evacuate in the event of an emergency. The nearest suitable assembly area is Phillips Park, almost 3 blocks away. And while emergencies may be rare, this childcare centre must legally practice mass evacuations every 3 months. And given the increased traffic in this area, how will this be done safely and without incident with 56 children as young as 0 to 5 years old in tow in possible chaotic circumstances? Compounding this problem is that there exists no national or New South Wales requirement as to how quickly such a number of children must be evacuated to a safe place. The law and regulation only says there must be a plan, not how quickly it must be completed. Ever since the national law and New South Wales laws and regulations removed all limits of the sizes of childcare services 6 years ago, the biggest childcare centre ever proposed since for Australia is for 556 children. In New South Wales, the largest so far are in Warrawee, 250 children, Brookvale, 212, Artarmon, 210, Parramatta, 208, and Epping, 200. Just to name a few. How quickly do you think they can evacuate all those children? Whether it is 56 or a few hundred, it's no longer a question of if, but when will it happen in your LGA? If this motion tonight were to pass, I look forward to joining my colleagues from the community, not-for-profit segment, as well as family daycare, to engage with you more comprehensively. But I think it is safe to say that the entire sector, including even unions, are united in our concerns about the future of early childhood education and care, particularly in New South Wales, for all our children's sakes. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Lim. Councillor Elmore, you wish to ask the question?
Yeah, I do have a question because around where I live, there's childcare centres popped up everywhere, and there's one in almost every street from where I live on near the railway line up to Woodville Road, and I have seen some childcare centres being set up on Woodville Road, and I thought to myself, you know, like if they've got to get these children out of the childcare centre, and where's the evacuation point? You're not going to put 4-year-olds standing on Woodville Road. So I think it was bad planning. But I did read the SEP. I don't know a lot about the SEP, and I might ask the council officers they help me out on this on the new SEP. But
I think if we go into council before, for discussion.
I'll ask about the SEP then.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further questions of Mr. Lim? No further questions? Thank you, Mr. Lim. Council, can I have a motion that the council suspends orders and brings forward item C12/18-271, and I probably, while we're at it, will keep there to do the other notice of motion. But if thank you, Councillor Sarkis. Yeah, that's Councillor Hammond, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Declare that carried. I will go to your questions, Councillor Elmore, but as I have a notice of motion, obviously Councillor Addy, you were moving that name, and Councillor Rami, I believe, well, Councillor Rami's name's written on there, so I take it Councillor Rami is seconding. Thank you. Councillor Elmore, you wish to ask questions about the SEP?
We're back in.
We're operating. Yep.
I understand that, I could be wrong, but I understand that the education, the state took over the, or put forward a new SEP. 2017, wasn't it? I don't really understand why they want to do that, but I thought that the reason behind that was because councils would make it too difficult for childcare operators to get the approvals through. I'm not completely sure if that's right, but I just want to know the intention behind the SEP that the Department of Planning put forward.
I'll ask the Acting Director for Environmental and Planning.
The SEP was introduced in 2017, and the intent of the SEP more broadly is to take away, or rather unify, planning controls across metropolitan Sydney. Different local government areas had different requirements. For example, the ability to have a childcare centre located in proximity to another childcare centre. So the effect of the SEP is to say that council may have its own controls insofar as insofar as it may have particular standards in place, but as it relates to proximity and a number of other provisions,
it's certainly not the appropriate place for childcare centres to be located. So this new SEP, is that going to address those sort of issues?
Mr. Alcorn.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it does provide criteria around location and proximity to main roads. And generally discourages that kind of thing. But again, it sets a standard in terms of compliance with the regulation more broadly. And where there is compliance with that, council cannot refuse an application because of its own local standards.
Mm-hmm.
Councillor Sarkis, you...
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, just a question to Mr. Alcorn. I take on board what you said in response to Councillor Elmore. But if council has concern with respect to amenity, evacuation process, time, security of evacuation, surely council can still have, or surely council still has the powers to override a approval that's given and say, no, we won't approve these. We're going to put this on hold until further investigation is done because of the amenities, the safety, the location, etc. For example, Woodville Road, which was alluded to by or mentioned by Councillor Elmore earlier. Surely council still has the power there to step in and say, sure, you got an approval here, but we're going to put this approval on hold until we do further investigation. We don't agree that it is a safe site for children.
Mr. Alcorn.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, it depends on the standard in question. So one of the prescribed matters as it relates to the proximity of one childcare centre to another, council cannot refuse an application or lawfully refuse an application on those grounds because some of the planning controls that a lot of councils have deal with those sorts of issues. So the SEP comes in and overrides the local controls to the extent of any inconsistency. As it relates to evacuation, those matters are prescribed matters in the building code anyway, and they're always applicable, and they will deal with the case by case for each site for each development as it arises.
Look, I take that on board, but in short, does council still have the power to put a stay on an approval until further investigation is done with respect to safety of a particular site? We'll use Woodville Road as an example. No particular site on Woodville Road, but we'll use Woodville Road as an example. I mean, that's a very dense road. It's very busy. If something was... I'm an adult and try and cross that road, it's quite dangerous, right? In fact, walking along the footpath on that road can be quite dangerous, right? For an adult. So again, with children, children from 0 to 5, we're talking, if it's a danger or a potential danger for me, how much more of a danger is it for these kids? And on that ground, whether it's a SEP or not, I'm sure council, under its duty of care, still has the ability to put a stay on a approval until further investigation is done with respect to the qualifications of the approval.
Mr O'Connor,
Um,
would you like to comment?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Council, I guess, always has the ability to determine an application based on its environmental impact, and safety grounds are part of the matters for consideration prescribed. I guess the point that I'm making as it relates to quite tangible things like the provision of car parking, if a particular standard is achieved, then council cannot lawfully refuse an application based on if compliance is achieved with that standard. So council can't be more onerous than the standard set by the SEP. And SEP is a prescribed matter in considering a development application. So, and it's a higher order document compared with the local planning controls.
Thank you, Mr O'Corn. I just want to make the councillors aware that there has been an amendment to the original the printed notice of motion. So just so the councillors are aware of what has actually been changed prior. Councillor Grove.
And flag, I support the motion. It looks to prepare a report to table what is a particularly significant issue in our community. I would simply flag that in considering our advocacy in this space, has it been moved, Mr Mayor? I believe it would have been.
It has been moved by Councillor Addy and seconded by Councillor Rami.
Thank you.
They haven't spoken.
Oh, well, I will let the mover. No, I just simply flag it's important that this organisation is not seen to be attempting to restrict trade in an industry in which we are a participant. That just goes to the credibility of our approach to government. Notwithstanding that, I think we have some pretty serious issues about approvals in our area, and some of these approvals, as quite clearly outlined, could have some unintended consequences, and it would be reckless for us to overlook them in our local community.
Thank you, Councillor Grove. Councillor Addy, would you like to speak to your motion?
If you allow me to, Mr Mayor,
Thank you.
I'm just being polite today because my fellow councillor said, Ned, please keep it down. We want to go home early tonight, so I'll keep it as quickly as possible. Mr Mayor, thank you very much, and I'd like to thank the councillors for, I suppose, in their, overwhelming support. And one councillor actually said, "I'm not going to make you feel like a guru again like we did the last time and worship you, but I don't want that anymore, please." Mr Mayor, the issue that we're looking at today... I'll take it. Mr Mayor, the issue we're looking at today is not just an issue with childcare per se. There are some major issues when it comes to council's inability to actually better enforce our own regulations, which are overridden by a SEP. The SEP, in hindsight, may have been a good thing to increase business in the area, but lacked the finer detail that, as council assessing officers look at, finds some issues where, we spoke about Woodville Road, for example. Yes, of course, the council staff will be looking at an evacuation plan for a site on Woodville Road, and that evacuation might be around the corner in the street. But trying to ferry kids as young as 2 or 3 months old up to an age of 5 is going to be a major issue. And this is why we need to be a bit more strict as to where they go. We're not saying we're stopping childcare centres. We're asking to be a bit more diligent in our approach to the planning rules, and then talk to the government about allowing council a bit more leeway, or make the SEP a bit more stringent so that it allows council to better understand where we can have these things. Number 2, the number 3 item, I believe, looks at speaking to the federal minister and providing a report to council so we actually do know where we have too many in one spot and not enough in another. Maybe we do have too many in Lidcombe, for argument's sake, and not many in Pemulwuy. Well, you know what, let's stop approving too many in Lidcombe because it's an oversupply, and those figures will tell us what the actual oversupply is, and look at areas where we can have these childcare centres, but at the same time, look at the ways in which we need to approve them. The SEP is there for a reason. It may be inadequate in today's day and age, where you just have to meet a certain minimum criteria, and then we cannot refuse it because these new SEPs say this cannot be refused if it complies to the bare minimum of these provisions. That's what we don't want. So what we're seeking is to request council and the staff to actually put on a workshop, speak to the peak bodies, better understand what the industry is saying to us, because yes, we are a player and we are part of that industry, and it would be good if we as council would better understand that industry as well. In addition to that, look at the actual steps, the laws, the regulations behind it, find ways where we can lobby the government to actually introduce maybe a change to the SEP. We were quite successful in putting the low to medium housing on hold for 12 months. We can probably do the same thing here. Hearing figures of 560 kids in one childcare centre is absolutely ludicrous. Okay, we're worried about taking 56 kids out in the evacuation plan. How are you going to take 560 kids out? I mean, it's frightening to even think how you would actually do it. Now, I spoke to one of the councillors prior to this and I said, let me ask you a question. Does your child go to childcare? And the councillor said yes. I said, how old is your child? 3. Can she understand if you speak to her about certain things? Of course she can. Ask her or her teacher when was the last time the actual childcare did undertake an evacuation practice run, or do they do it every couple of months like we do in our buildings, for argument's sake? That is where the issues are. If these kids don't understand from a young age how to actually evacuate a building safely and quietly, and they're not actually having the drills go through their system, how will they understand if something does, for God's sake, for God forbid, actually happen on a certain day? So the context of the actual motion is to better understand the industry, try and get some laws and regulations where it will actually assist us, where we can have, if we need more, we'll approve more, but approve them in a way that actually helps the community, not hinders people's lives and the safety aspect of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Addy. I have Councillor Saha, then Councillor Elmore. Councillor Saha, are you speaking for or against?
Oh, of course, Mr. Mayor, I'm speaking for.
Thank you.
And I'm not gonna worship Councillor Addy for it. Just wanna make it very clear. But yeah, I think this is a very timely motion. So I myself as well want to better understand the childcare industry and how we can better regulate the childcare industry in our council area, because we have lots of young families and lots of young kids. And I understand we are operating about 16 or 17 childcare services ourselves, and we excel in that. So for us to, I think we already understand, we have that expertise among us, but it's about how we regulate that, because a lot of private people also want to get into this business. So other part is the lobby the government so that we can access the occupancy data, and that will probably help us understand where we need the childcare. As Councillor Atty mentioned, maybe we have enough childcare facilities already in the eastern side of the Cumberland, maybe not much in the western part. And if that's the case, and vice versa, then we can address that issue. I have a 3-year-old, and she goes to a childcare without mentioning where she goes in. The childcare access, even though it's an apartment block, it's a commercial block, and they have 2 cafes and a gym operating, and then the second floor is where the childcare center is. They have a dedicated parking spot or drop-off zone under the facility, but no one actually uses that. And I see every morning and even in the afternoon when parents want to drop off or pick up their kids, they always use the street parking. And it's a major concern sometimes for me, because especially in the afternoon and in the morning, parents are in rush, and I see that they are just crossing the road where there was no crossing, or there should not be crossing from there, and it's a major safety concern. We do not have any drop-off zone on the street. And also other thing, they have only 1 lift, and that lift being used by all the commercial premises. All the unknown people, they use that lift, and the children and the parents also use the same lift. And I sometimes feel like that's probably not right. I mean, anyone can have access to the child care, and the kids are going there, they don't know. And in one occasion particularly, I remember I was there, the kids actually get into the lift, and somehow lift door closes, and the lift went down, and the mother was like screaming and said, oh my goodness, what's gonna happen? And she didn't know about, how to access the stairs, where we're talking about the evacuation plan, like if there is a major safety thing happens, if there is a fire, and they didn't know about it. So if the parents don't know about it, and we're talking about the kids, I think they definitely have no clue. So I think if council, especially and the councillors have the opportunity to have a say on those applications, so we can better regulate them, because I believe the council and council officers who represent the community understand the need of the community better. So in that reason, I think this is a very good and timely motion, and I'm supporting of this and looking forward to have the report and also participate in the workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Saha. Councillor, I have then councillor Elmore, then councillor Lake. Councillor Elmore, are you speaking
Thanks, Mr.
for or
Mayor.
against?
Yeah, I am speaking for the motion. I read this motion 3 times and I couldn't understand it, so I thought I'd Councillor Addy, he likes to overcomplicate things, and so I thought I'd come to council and work out what he's trying to get at the meeting. But I was just in curiosity, does childcare come under the Federal Minister for Education, or is it Minister for Families and Children and Families?
Miss
Do we know?
Endicott?
Through you, Mr Mayor, it's the Minister for Education.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I support this motion. Over the years, I've seen some around my way. I've seen a lot of childcare centres. They set up and they don't last very long. They move on. I've seen a couple of childcare centres on Woodville Road that weren't there very long, and I think some of the planning is pretty poor. And I'm all for bringing back planning to local government. And over the years, a lot of planning has been taken away from local government. I think local government probably knows more about their local issues than state. So I'm all for this. I'm all for getting a report, and I encourage the staff to when they come back with this report, we'll have a look at it. And I think that we should be able to develop a good policy on where Cumberland Council wants to go on locating their childcare centres.
Thank you, councillor Elmore. Councillor Lake?
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. I also support the motion. It's an important and worthy cause, and something that we have a very large interest in this council. I think there's many young parents sitting around this council table with children of preschool age who are experiencing the service in Cumberland every day. I think it would be helpful if, when the report comes to council in February, if the officers could include in that report a copy of the submission that they lodged back in April 2017 when the administrator was here. I remember reading it at the time. It was detailed and it addressed all the issues and problems that they foresaw with that SEP. So I think it's a good starting point for us in educating ourselves into the finer detail of the problems. So yes, unfortunately, but I think that's a good starting point for us to move in an advocacy role, as Councillor Addy has proposed. Thanks.
Thank you, councillor Lake. Are there any speakers against? No speakers against. Right of reply, councillor Addy.
Mr Mayor, I think a lot of the councillors are in support, and there's not really much more to say. Mr Lim actually quite eloquently said what most of the issues are. I mean, we can regulate, you can't have chemists and pharmacies within 800 metres of each other, but you can have 8 or 9 childcare centres down one road, which sounds ludicrous. So I believe enough's been said, and I'll just put the motion forward, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Addy. That closes debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? I declare that carried unanimously.